those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. I am by no means a fan of Britney Spears' music. However, what has been done to her should never, ever, ever happen again.
From Kentwood, Louisiana, here is 10-year-old Britney Spears.
When we stand together, it's our finest hour. We can do anything, oh, anything. Keep believing in that
You don't need to like any particular genre to see that this girl has serious talent.
It's Britney, bitch.
Britney was desperate for love. From the earliest age, Britney wanted everybody to love her, including Kevin. And I think that when it didn't work out, it was heartbreaking for her, and I don't think she ever really dealt with it.
All of us have been through up and downs in relationships. All of us have had bad breakups, but not all of us have had to do it in front of the world.
The moment that I started to become really concerned for Britney Spears was when she had that now infamous sit down and crying the ugly cry.
What's up? What do you mean?
Please go away.
Out. Everyone get out. Out. Out.
I think when she cried to the paps, I think there was two things going on here. I think we could read exactly what kind of strain she was under at this point. But of course, the paps, the ones who were following her all the time, were in some sense, I don't want to say the people closest to her. These were people who she was interacting with on a fairly regular basis. So I suppose there is that notion of the signal to people who are at least with her to say, look, this is the stress I'm under at this point in time.
Do you need someone to talk to, Britney?
You know, I think we've come a long way in kind of spotting the signs of poor mental health. Thank goodness we speak about it more. For poor Britney back then, what she really needed was someone to kind of get her to see that what was going on was a product of her not, you know, not being able to cope properly.
You okay, Britney?
Are you okay, Britney?
You should go home, Britney.
Do you need to talk to someone, Britney?
Adding to the strain of Britney's mental health was being a mum in full public view.
I think a lot of mothers feel guilty when they're developing their career, and I think there's always this conflict between career and children. Now, also, of course, if you're a star, you're very good at what you do. Does that put the pressure on to say, well, I should also be an extraordinary mother?
We were all playing judge and jury, thanks to the photos constantly appearing around the world.
It's a multi-billion industry when it comes to getting photos. These paparazzis are just going to do what they got to do to make their living.
It was a bit of a madhouse and a little bit, you know, frightening, to be honest.
I don't care, man.
Bad stories sell, and she had kind of become the poster child, I think, at that point of, you know, they saw that fall and they all kind of saw the blood in the water and they went after her with a vengeance.
Yeah, we'll let you get.
Hi, Britney. What's up, Britney? How are you, Britney? You looking good, Britt?
They're getting a taxi, okay?
Here we go.
Guys, get off the car. Get off the car and get out of the street. Get your shot.
Great. Britney! Britney! Give me a peace sign!
Clear it! Clear it! You're blocking traffic!
A breakup, this spasm of publicity about what happened from Mexico to London.
It was pretty rough, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Ah, weird. Hello. Oh my goodness. Hello. Ew. Strong Britney. Yeah, it was a weird. Ew. hurts. Can we stop?
What do you think it'll take to get the paparazzi to leave you alone?
I don't know. I don't know.
Is that one of your biggest wishes?
Yeah. It's okay. I would like them to leave me alone.
If you could talk to them as individuals, not as a group, what would you say to them?
I would just say that you have babies at home and you have a life, and if you don't, you have to realize that we're people and that we just need privacy and we need our respect, and those are things that you have to have as a human.
I just don't like it when you get in my way of my pictures.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that, Britney.
I'm a person just like you.
What? Are you okay, Britney?
Yes, I'm fine.
Everything good?
Yeah.
Is everything good, Britney? Grab it at work. Look out, guys. Restroom's over here, Britney. Looking for the restroom?
Come on, guys.
This way.
She's trying to go to ransom, please.
Where's the restroom at, guys?
Britney Spears was a moneymaker for the paparazzi. They couldn't get enough pictures of her, and the pictures sold all around the world and made them a ton of money.
And the pictures they got would not be favourable for Britney. Moments such as driving off with 4-month-old Sean Preston on her lap and stumbling with him in her arms meant everyone had an opinion.
She's in this fishbowl, trying to be this parent, a perfect parent, in the same way she'd try to be the perfect performer, and it's just not possible.
And when Sean Preston accidentally fell from his high chair under the care of the nanny and banged his head, things escalated, and doctors called family care monitoring services.
We were contacted by Kevin Federline's attorneys, stating that Britney needed a monitor. I was with her for about 4 months. Monitored parents generally, they try to be on their best behavior, but then something happens and they take over their normal way that they act and interact with their children sort of takes over. I know that there were times when she was frustrated, mostly because of having somebody observing her. But Britney was really good with her children.
I think she is slightly cut off to, like, normality. I think when you sit there one-on-one with her is when you realise that she is, you know, she's a home girl, and she is actually, she just loves a bit of normality.
For Britney, normality was not an option, and with the world watching, she was about to face her breaking point.
This was a decade ago. This was not today. We'd not seen Kim Kardashian's sex tape. We'd not seen Paris Hilton's vagina. This was innocent times in America and maybe the world.
If you're going to blame anybody, blame everyone. Blame everyone across the board. Blame the person that's buying the magazine at the rack at the store. You know, the photographer. Blame the security guard. He's the one that told us where you were going.
It's a double-edged sword. You know, the press needs the artist needs the press. So it's a symbiotic relationship, but it got a bit vicious.
Oh wow, she did that too? This?
Britney did what I think most human beings would do when something just becomes crowded and claustrophobic. You lash out, and what was in her hand at that time was an umbrella. And she was lashing out not just at the paparazzi, but at the press and at fame and who she had become and the life that she could never get back.
Never before had the paparazzi been attacked by Britney, but having been relentlessly pursued for the past year, she finally snapped.
The way I see it now is that she was crying for help, and this was her vent, that she went and attacked my truck with the SUV just to ask for that help, to say I'm not good.
It sounded like she was having alcohol and substance issues and that perhaps she was experiencing mental health symptoms, including depression. And
You know, when you mix those two things, people do become at higher risk for things like self-harm and suicidal ideation. I think people were so used to seeing her sort of being functional in a public environment that perhaps they didn't think it could happen to her, but it could happen to anybody.
With Britney at rock bottom, even she recognized the trouble she was in. Checking into Promises Rehab Center in Malibu, this time she stayed to complete her treatment.
It's not a little pill that you pop and everything's okay, right? You need to change the way you think about things, your behaviors, your attitudes. All of these things matter.
After a month at the clinic, Britney came home. At the start of October 2007, Britney's worst nightmare came true. Superior Court Judge Scott M. Gordon awarded Kevin Federline full custody of their sons after he said that Britney had a habitual, frequent and continuous use of controlled substances and alcohol. It seemed Britney had finally reached her breaking point.
She lost custody, she lost visits with the children that she still continued to love. People saw her as a disappointment. If it wasn't for her superstardom, then she's supposed to be a mother. And both of those two things that probably fed very strongly into her self-concept were taken away from her.
Whether or not Britney was actively encouraging it, it was killing her. The world scrutiny, the world attention, the fame, it was killing her.
Right now, we're on top of Hollywood Hills, which is next to Beverly Hills on Mulholland. And so this is where Britney Spears was residing at that time. But in this particular night, this is where it was just mayhem. Reporters, paparazzis, you name it, police cars, fire trucks, ambulance.
Following a court-appointed visit, Britney locked herself in her bathroom for 3 hours, refusing to give back the children to Kevin.
The visit went well up until that moment in time when she had to return her sons. I believe she had gotten a phone call telling her something to the effect of, you know, you need to return the kids, and, you know, I don't know what the rest of it was, but I know whatever it was, it triggered her to be extremely upset.
We have good mental health. We take care of our future selves, not just our current selves. In that moment, the need to have her kids was so deep. You know, she wanted to take care of what she felt in that, you know, in those moments, that she couldn't project forward into, well, what's it gonna mean? Like, how long are we gonna stay in this bathroom? You know, what happens when this door opens? You know, is a judge gonna look favorably on this?
What's going on with Britney? She doesn't want to give the babies back?
Kevin Federline's attorney was one visitor who tried to coax her out.
What's going on, man? Give me a break, okay? Come on, man. What's going on?
Yeah, what's going on?
After spending hours locked in the bathroom, Britney was put into an ambulance and ventured out to the waiting eyes of the world.
The minute the gate opened, the ambulance came out with this lights. All the paparazzis and everyone just surrounded the ambulance, and they were even trying to get pictures of Britney in the back seat in the gurney.
The great people, I suppose, who intervened and who managed to extricate her from that bathroom and get her some help in a hospital did a tremendous job.
Britney was reportedly placed under a 5250 psychiatric hold at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. This allows a qualified doctor to involuntarily confine a person deemed to have certain mental health disorders for up to 14 days.
Do I remember? Yes, I remember. I cried. I just was so glad when her parents stepped in and did what they did, and they did exactly what they should do as parents. Yes, I cried. I loved this little girl, and I knew she was in pain, and it broke my heart.
Although critics say they should have acted sooner, it was her dad stepping in and taking back control of Britney's life that many say saved her life.
A conservatorship agreement in America is the same as being made a ward of court in Britain. And this essentially gives Britney Spears the same rights as a 12-year-old. She, basically in the early years of the conservatorship, had to seek permission to use the phone, get the car keys. Everything was under Jamie Spears' authority for the well-being of Britney Spears because she was deemed to be a danger to herself.
I do think that Britney kind of went back and redid her childhood when the conservatorship started, and she kind of did it the right way and learned things again. And I actually think that she felt safer.
It was her father. He really came in and kind of stabilized the whole situation. So I give her father really credit for really saving her, because if it was not for him, things could have turned out vastly different for her.
I think the public have changed, and I hope and trust that they wouldn't kind of enjoy watching it in quite the way they did then.
Britney Spears will always be Britney Spears. I just hope for her sake that she gets a chance to be whoever she wants to be.
No, like, I just really, like, want to talk and just say, like, how nice our world is. Like, it is so nice. Like, I'm gonna cry right now, because, like, our world is so nice. No, it really is, because, like, oh my God, like, the other day I saw, like, this magazine, and I looked at it, and it said, like, I was pregnant, and, like, I went up to my mom, and I was like, oh my God, like, my mom knew, like, she was right. Like, always believe everything you read, everybody. Like, because I really am pregnant. And then, like, I went to, this person, and they saw it, like, on the USA Today, like, that, you know, like, I was drinking a lot. Yeah. And it was so true. It was so true. And then, like, it was just so weird, because, like, then after that, like, everybody, like, you know, just always believe what you read. Because, like, in all my management, they totally knew what they were doing when they sent me to rehab. Like, totally. Like, they totally knew what they were doing. Like, it's just so weird how great and nice our world is. And, like, after this, nobody's going to talk about this, because our world is so nice. So that's all I wanted to say. So, okay, bye.
Okay, thank you, Britney.
So, that's the story that the tabloids have been telling us for many, many years, that she had a mental breakdown, and that even after she had the children, she was still boozing and doing drugs and partying. And so everybody thought the conservatorship was a good thing and that it saved her life. But that is not what was happening at all.
It's Britney, bitch.
It seems to me that if Britney's security team were doing their job at the time, the Paps wouldn't be getting so close to her. You only have to look at how Johnny Depp's team works to see what was supposed to have been done to protect Britney. Instead, they were the ones giving the paparazzi her location all the time. So, did things get any better when Daddy Spears stepped in?
A man who used to guard Britney Spears' back is now suing the singer, claiming he was forced to see too much of her front. He's suing the singer, claiming sexual harassment and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Fernando Flores worked for Spears' security detail. His lawsuit claims Spears repeatedly exposed herself to him and that he witnessed her punish her young sons with his belt and act inappropriately in front of them. The suit seeks unspecified damages. A statement on Spears' official website calls the lawsuit another unfortunate situation where someone is trying to take advantage of the Spears family and make a name for himself. The statement goes on to say that California authorities looked into Flores' accusations and closed the case without any further action.
Well, this week, Mr. Flores, Fernando Flores, like I said, decides he's going to write a book after his lawsuit for sexual harassment didn't go anywhere. This is a former police officer, go figure, that is money hungry, bottom line. And we have to deal with that. I want to thank Tracy Bennett, one of my Twitter followers, that brought this to my attention, and I wanted to expose it. And in doing that, I said, you know what? There's only two ways you make it on my blog by name. One is if you're an asset to this industry and you're helping, irrespective of what part of this industry you're in, that you're uplifting this industry and people can learn from you. That's one way you can get your name on my blog. The other way if you can get your name on our blog is if you're killing this industry. So from now on, anybody that's killing this industry is going to get the name SCAB. SCAB is an acronym for Security Counterfeiting as Bodyguard. That's your new name. And Mr. Flores, you have the honor of being the first BPI security SCAB.
Britney Spears' former bodyguard has made a series of allegations about her mistreatment in an interview with The Sun newspaper, appearing to corroborate claims the singer made in court last month about her life under the conservatorship of her father, which began in 2008. Former police officer Fernando Flores said Spears was given antipsychotic medications and birth control pills during his 8 months as her bodyguard beginning in 2010. These medications, he said, made her go from sane to talking about parallel universes, and her former bodyguard alleged a number of restrictive practices, including a policy of searching the bags of all visitors to Spears' home. Flores also added that Spears was not allowed to go out unaccompanied, and alleged both that her phone was monitored and that her father would call her 3 or 4 times per day to check on her. The wider context for these calls, he said, was that Spears had to ask her father's permission if she wanted something.
So first of all, he tries to sue her for sexual harassment, and then he tries to scam a book deal. And through all that time that he was working for her, he was actually complicit in what happened to her. Nah, I'm sorry, Mr. Flores, but you are a scab.
When the conservatorship first started, Jamie had the power to retain security around Britney 24/7.
Watch out, guys. Watch out. Why do you have to? You look great, Britney.
Idan Yemeni runs Black Box Security, which was Britney's longtime security company.
So wait a second. The same security company that was already doing her security when the Paps turned her into a mental mess are the same company that Jamie hires to continue her security? What could possibly go wrong?
I don't think security has gotten much scrutiny. You may see them in the background of a photo, hovering around Britney, but we didn't really understand what they did.
You mean other than calling the Paps to tell them wherever she's going?
Okay, so
I worked with the security team for Britney for almost 9 years. I started at Black Box being Idan's assistant. I did everything from write his emails to be on all phone conversations in order to take notes for him. I was the only person at Black Box that knew everything, really. Idan was so relieved when he saw the first documentary. He was so relieved that he wasn't mentioned, Black Box wasn't mentioned, TriStar wasn't mentioned. It was his biggest fear that security would somehow draw any attention.
Start at the beginning.
When I started working at Black Box in 2012, Britney was the only full-time client.
So essentially, Black Box today was built off the back of Britney's money.
Go forward. Go forward. Go forward, Britney. Go forward. Just go forward, Britney.
When I got the job, I was super excited. I just turned 21 that year. It was honestly, it felt like an opportunity of a lifetime because there was potential. I would see her very briefly. A lot of the times they would even ask me to leave. If we knew Britney was gonna be home, I didn't know even anything about the conservatorship. I've never heard of that. And everything that I would know about the conservatorship would be from Idan. We were told the conservatorship is there for her own good, that it was there to protect her from influence, from her losing money, that it was a way for her to have custody of her kids.
We were told the same things, except that it was a way for her to have custody of her kids. We'll dive into this into another episode, but from what I understand, that being in the conservatorship is what the court decided would prevent her from seeing her kids.
The same thing was always repeated, that this is something she wants. I remember I asked Idan, why is it that security is with her 24/7? And he told me that security was part of the conservatorship. Jamie, Don, and Robin were basically a part of every step Britney took.
We'll do a deep dive into each of these characters in later episodes, but obviously Jamie is Daddy Spears. not to be confused with Jamie Lynn, her sister.
There was a group chat with Idan, Robin and Jamie, and security, where they would basically post all the movement. Even in the sacred place, her home, every single request was monitored and recorded. Her intimate relations were closely managed.
How you doing, Britt?
You know, Britney could not have someone in the privacy of her house without those three people knowing. Idan would say she's just like a child and like any other minor who needs their parents' consent.
Except she wasn't a child or a minor. Bear in mind that Britney claimed before and still claims today that she didn't have a problem with drugs and alcohol. She was just a recreational user. But she was controlled pretty much through all of this period under the assumption that she was a substance abuser.
Around the same time as when one of the new agents that was working there was asking me, how is it okay that we're in charge of her medication? You know, I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, we were given prepackaged envelopes. We have to hand them to her, and she can't leave. She has to take it there. And, you know, every time that was brought up or discussed, it was like, this is what security should be doing because, you know, this is what the client is asking for, and this is what the client needs.
Was the client asking for it, or?
The client is Jamie. You know, when I took a step back and I looked at everything, it really reminded me of somebody that was in prison. And security was put in a position to be the prison guards, essentially. Britney wanted to get an iPhone. She saw her assistants have iPhones, dancers team, Idan even, and she wanted an iPhone. And that was a big deal. Everybody was worried. And then Idan approached me and asked me, is there any monitoring services for an iPhone that you are aware of? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, parental controls. You know, is there any way to put parental controls on an iPhone? And that's when Idan explained to me that Britney's communication is monitored for her own, you know, security and protection. I asked Idan about the legality of that, actually. Are you allowed to do that? And he said, yes. The court is aware of this. Britney's lawyer is aware of this. This is for her safety, it's for her protection. And then Robin came up with the idea of, why don't we just take an iPad, sign in with an iCloud on there, the same iCloud that Britney would use on her phone, and that would mirror all activity.
So not only illegal surveillance, but hacking, essentially.
You would be able to see all messages, all FaceTime calls, notes, browser history, photographs. Idan would bring me text messages of conversations that Britney would have, and he would ask me to encrypt those messages and give it to him so he could pass it on to Robin and Jamie. As time went on, they became very comfortable with me. They openly talked about monitoring her. Their reason for the monitoring was, you know, looking for bad influence, looking for potential, you know, illegal activity that might happen. But they would also monitor conversations with her friends, with her mom, with her lawyer, Sam Ingham. If there's anybody that should be off limits, it should be Britney's lawyer.
Again, we'll do a deep dive into this later, but Sam Ingham was not Britney's lawyer. He was a court-appointed lawyer who obviously wasn't going to sell her drugs.
And, you know, I still felt that I'm not understanding something. So just do your job, and maybe one day you'll understand. When her own phone and her own private conversations were used so often to control her, I know for a fact that Jamie would confront Britney and say, hey, why did you text this person? Just because you're in control doesn't give you the right to treat people like property. It didn't feel like she was being treated like a human being.
The first rule of the conservatorship was you don't talk about the conservatorship. It was just a hard and fast rule that we don't talk about it. We don't ask questions, we don't voice opinions about it, internally or outside of the organization. She was kept very, very isolated. Her manager, when I first came on, said, be careful, don't get too close. People have a way of disappearing. At the time, I assumed that the concern is that someone would come in and bring her drugs or other contraband. But I think if you're actually concerned with someone's mental health, you don't take their friends away from them. And if their friends are going away, you at least give them a chance to say goodbye.
Totally 100% agree. But I would also add that somebody who wants to isolate their victim is probably an abuser.
They came and checked my place to make sure I wasn't trying to stash anything weird and give it to her or something.
Britney had advanced people come scope out the place?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, to make sure I wasn't a bad influencer.
Wow.
I was I promise, I'm not gonna do anything bad. I just want to have lunch.
Right.
Yeah.
Working at Black Box, I saw so much. I'm not a law expert, so I can't speak to the legality of everything, but ethically, it was just one big mess. Idan had a audio recording device put into Britney's bedroom. Idan and one of the agents working with him came into my office and handed me the audio recording device and a USB drive and asked me to wipe it. I had them tell me what was on it. They seemed very nervous and said that it was extremely sensitive, that nobody can ever know about this, and that's why I need to delete everything on it so there's no record of it. That raised so many red flags with me, and I did not want to be complicit in whatever they were involved in, so I kept a copy because I don't want to delete evidence.
Interesting that he would class it as evidence of potentially illegal activity while he was still working there.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that it was done days before she was due to meet with a court investigator. There was an obsession with the men in Britney's life. They would have to sign contracts. They would have to sign NDAs. It was January of 2019. Idan, reached out to me and asked if the iPad was still in the safe. I said, of course, where else would it be? I was out of town at that time. And then I come back in February from my vacation, and Britney is gone.
So it really seems as if this facility stay in 2019 is a really big turning point in the conservatorship for almost everyone involved.
She did not want to be there. I heard this from multiple people, including Robin and Jamie themselves when they would talk on the phone to Idan. I overheard multiple conversations where they knew Britney didn't want to be there. They were monitoring everything. Conversations with her friends, with her mom. She reached out to an attorney asking if he can sneak in.
And this new lawyer is saying, okay, can I come meet you? And Britney says, I don't think they're gonna let you come in and meet me if they know that you're a lawyer. I don't think they're gonna let me hire a new lawyer. And she suggests that this lawyer pretend to be a plumber and hide the fact that they were a lawyer. And Britney acknowledges in the text that she's stuck in this catch-22. She says, how am I supposed to know whether I want to hire you if I'm not even able to meet with you first?
Again, we will jump into the hiring of lawyers and what happened there in later episodes. But trust me, Catch-22 is an understatement.
And Jamie and security had monitored all of this. It seems as if one of the rationales, perhaps, for trying to have such close oversight of Britney is trying to protect her from bad influence. But that's not what I'm seeing in these text messages. It seems as if she's trying to get help.
They openly talked about everything that was going on, and I still felt that I'm not understanding something, that I don't know the full story, that there's so much more to it. And it was easy to detach yourself emotionally from everything that was going on. And I think this is when I snapped back into reality. Idan initially was very worried about the Free Britney movement because it was something out of their control. It was something that was shaping on its own.
How you feeling, Britney? How's your dad doing?
It was orchestrated that she would come out of the hotel to show the public that you have nothing to worry about. Look, Britney is walking around, she's with her boyfriend.
These photos are a big deal because obviously here she is out and about. Clearly she's not a prisoner at this facility.
She's not.
When she was released from the facility, security was asked to prepare a iPhone for her that would only be allowed to make phone calls. No text messaging, no internet access. That's the one thing that I don't know still to this day. Is the court aware of any of this shit? Like how they've been monitoring her. Do they actually know about that? Like, I'm super curious. And Idan telling me that Sam Ingham knew that Jamie and Robin were reading all her text messages. Is that true? And if they did know about this, how was that allowed?
So, what we've established here is that security very much did have control over what the Paps were doing. They just chose not to control it until Jamie came into the picture. All this throwing her in rehab and controlling her life and putting her under a conservatorship and cancelling all her friends, none of that was necessary. All they needed to do was stop the Paps from doing what they were doing to her. And on top of all of that, management were not screening interview questions until after Jamie got involved, which led to some very inappropriate interview questions that generally ended up with her in tears.
It's Britney, bitch.
I noticed last week you had the most adorable, pretty eyes. Do you have a boyfriend?
No, sir.
I want you to watch how this seemingly innocent question turns ugly real quick.
Why not?
They're mean.
Boyfriends? You mean all boys are mean? I'm not mean. How about me?
Dude, check your age. You're a fucking grandpa.
Well, it depends.
I get that a lot.
Now, I know what you're thinking. He's going to ask the boy, would you be her boyfriend? Like something corny along those lines, right?
Now, you grew up on a farm in Missouri. Tell me about that.
Well, Ed, it was real nice.
So far, host 0, youngsters 2. Okay, good luck to both of you.
You see, following it up with something corny would have made him look less like a pedo. Or alternatively, asking her where she was from or where she grew up. But I guess coming across like a pedo didn't cross his mind.
Well, it depends.
Of all things that she could be asked about, because what else could we possibly talk to a woman or a girl about? There's so much more to her that everybody's missing.
Her parents reached out to me by letter, and the letter said something like, we have no idea what to do with this child. Help us, what do we do? I replied and said, well, I would love to meet her in person. They took the train from Louisiana to New York because I don't think they could afford to fly. Her parents were working people. Her mom was just so sweet, so proud of her daughter, and her dad, too, was very proud of Britney, and he was more concerned with the financial aspects of it. How was he going to be able to make this happen? Could he make it happen? But I know he wanted to make it happen for her. And we came up with a plan. Lynn and Britney would come to New York for a period of time. Britney could study voice in New York and study dance in New York and do some acting and audition. She was a funny, sweet, wonderful little girl. I loved her. I love her still.
Had no loving sense, God knows what.
Jamie visited from time to time and was anxious to see this time be worthwhile so that he could justify the money that it was costing to do this.
There was a time where you were struggling to really make ends meet, and you saved all the money you could to get singing lessons for Britney. How did you manage to do all of that?
It was really hard. A lot of times we would rob from Peter to pay Paul. You know, it was really hard.
All of this led to the Mickey Mouse Club audition, and she nailed it.
We've got a girl that enters a strange dimension of sight and sound as she crosses over into the teenage zone.
Britney just loved it. And when it ended, it was devastating.
After the Mickey Mouse Club, I went home for like 2 years, and I was completely normal. I went to high school, and I played basketball. I was just, really involved with my school.
And we started looking for auditions, but financially it would have been very difficult for them to come back and forth to New York. It was a tough time. It was a tough time, and it was really, what are we going to do now? And I know that the idea of singing was interesting to her. I remember her making a demo tape.
Before I worked with Britney, I was a nanny in New York. Lynn called. She said, well, Britney and I are going to be in the city, and we'd love for you to have dinner with us. And I said, oh, that sounds great. And Lynn said, oh, Felicia, I had an ulterior motive for inviting you to dinner. And I said, what? She said, Britney got a record deal today, and I can't travel with her because Jamie Lynn's in the 1st grade, but can you travel with her? And I said, oh my gosh, Lynn, well, I quit my job yesterday. I guess I can, but I'll do it for 3 months. And that was about 23 years ago.
She had plans to come to New York to meet people at the label. She came into my office with her chaperone. Her parents were in Louisiana. She had a younger sibling that was still in school and had to be taken care of. So Felicia was really sitting in for the parents. I remember Britney came in, and I was really impressed with the fact that she was so serious and so focused. And I thought, this is the style. This is a girl that's coming from strength. Your friend that you kind of idolize a little bit, but that at the end of the day has the same kind of hopes and dreams that you do.
Mama, come here. Y'all look so pretty. This is my mom right here. And this is my brother's girlfriend. This is my little sister.
Jamie, Britney's father, wasn't around very much when Britney was growing up. We know that Jamie was struggling with alcohol, and he later goes to rehab.
This might have something to do with how he projects his addiction onto his daughter a little bit later in life.
He drifts in between construction, being a cook, tries to open a gym business that didn't work out, and later ends up filing for bankruptcy.
Yep, he seems like the perfect candidate for a multi-million-dollar conservatorship.
He doesn't seem to be a big presence in her life.
Her mother would do whatever it took personally,
including letting a dirty old man talk to her daughter disrespectfully on national TV.
And for the family's sake, for Britney to be a star. Lynn supported Britney. I want to say Lynn because I never talked to her father. The only thing Jamie ever said to me was, my daughter's going to be so rich, she's going to buy me a boat. That's all I'm going to say about Jamie.
Hi, Britney Spears, and I'm so happy to be here today in Lake Park, so thanks for coming out. The name of the song is Thinking About You.
There's a lot of work that goes into the preparation for an album release. Kids go to school, kids go to the mall, so how do we reach those kids?
And this next song is my first single, and it's called Baby One More Time.
We'd be in the middle of the mall, and people would slowly stop and gather and watch, and then when it was over, we would go shopping. then as she became a little more popular, people really started coming to the malls to seek out where we were.
The video shows up. Quite famously, she is in a schoolgirl's uniform.
Probably because she was a schoolgirl.
She owns the hallways at this school. And the song is obviously sexual in nature.
Actually, no, it wasn't obviously sexual in nature. It was just about a teenage girl who had just broken up with a boyfriend.
If you're 12 or 13 years old, you're seeing a person who reminds you in some ways of you. And it isn't the sex part that seems cool. It's the control and command over herself and her space that seems cool.
Britney! She's so cool! I love her! I love the way she moves and she grows!
She just captured that dichotomy so well of what a teenage girl is. Teenage girls want to be adult women, but they also are kids.
Congratulations, your single is just exploding.
Well, thank you.
There is no bigger star in pop music than Britney Spears.
It's so exciting. It's really exciting. I'm very flattered.
Are you even surprised at how fast this has happened to you?
Oh my goodness, yeah. It's like all of a sudden, you know, it seems like overnight, just boom, you're famous. It's weird.
You have to remember one really important thing. This is boy band time. This is not about girls. Girls don't sell. So it really was a phenomenon.
One of the first things that she did when she just was getting famous was we were home for Christmas, and she wanted to go get $10,000 in $100 bills, and she just drove through Kentwood and gave out $100 bills. And it wasn't, hi, Britney Spears. It was Merry Christmas.
I know she's aiming for the little kids market or whatever. She needs to back off and put a pair of blue jeans on, no shoes, and just sing, you know?
To many, you are a contradiction. On the one hand, you're a sweet, innocent, virginal type. On the other hand, you're a sexy vamp in underwear.
I wouldn't say in underwear.
I mean, the thing that I find fascinating about Britney Spears' arrival at this moment is that she comes in the midst of the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal.
President Clinton had an affair.
Sexual relationship with a former White House intern, Monica Lewinsky.
And it's this really charged moment in the country where we are talking about sex in a way that we had never been talking about sex, or hadn't been for a long time. An exponent of that interest in that relationship bled over into our interest in Britney Spears in some way.
I think a lot of people were like uncomfortable with, you know, her sexuality.
A lot of talk about your sexy Lolita look, especially after the Rolling Stones story.
Well, I think we're all girls, and I mean, that's a part of who we are. You would be lying if you said you didn't like to feel sexy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You're a girl.
Everyone's talking about it.
Why?
Well, your breasts.
My breasts.
You seem to get furious when a talk show host comes up with this subject.
I'll say this, you know, I worked with all the boy bands, all of them. Not one of the boys was ever under any scrutiny.
It certainly is a paradox, isn't it? The way she works and
the way she dresses.
She doesn't seem that innocent.
That's when she just really started becoming more free and less concerned with pleasing everybody, which is also like a whole nother metaphor for what women do, right? At some point in our lives, we stop trying to please everybody.
Music up.
Just that's a diva.
I'm not a diva. I'm not a diva. I know what I like and I know what I want.
She was definitely in control of a lot of decisions. That idea that Britney is a puppet who just gets moved around and told what to do is incredibly inaccurate. When I was involved in all of those years, we would present a lot of ideas. She would have to like them, and she would have to approve them. She was very creative. She was the one who knew what she wanted to do, and she would make that happen, or her people would make that happen for her. That's how I got hired, is because she just told somebody, no, I want him to do it. And it happened within an hour.
Look at this enough.
She was the boss.
That is gonna be fucking cool every night, man. That's gonna...
I
how do you get control over your own life? And, you know, because you are a part of this huge...
Well, that's why I am where I am today, is because I do have control, you know? And you just control what you do. You know, you have to, otherwise you get sucked in by people that are not necessary.
So, who was supposed to be managing the types of questions that the media were asking a young, vulnerable teenager? That's right, her mum, her dad, and her talent agent. That's who was supposed to be managing it.
Am I a virgin? Yes, I am a virgin, and I definitely want to try and have sex till I'm married. I just want to wait for that special someone, so thank you.
They break up. Justin sort of made it seem, rightly or wrongly, like she had cheated on him. It really seemed like he took control of the narrative.
The way that people treated her, to be very high school about it, was like she was the school slut. And he was like the school quarterback or whatever. And he essentially weaponizes the video for one of his singles to incriminate her in the demise of the relationship.
It was a revenge, pure male revenge fantasy.
Justin Timberlake is in the house. And I just want to ask you one question. Did you Britney Spears? Yes or no?
Oh, man.
Come on, man.
Okay, I did it. No. Yeah!
Well, you know, misogyny, I don't know, what can you say about misogyny? There's a whole infrastructure to support it. And when it's time for people to come in a misogynistic culture for a woman, there's a whole apparatus ready to do it.
I have to ask a couple of things about Justin.
Okay, of course.
He has gone on television and pretty much said, you broke his heart. You did something that caused him so much pain, so much suffering. What did you do?
Her image was being painted as, oh, what did you do to cause the breakup? You must have done something, not him.
Britney Spears has upset a lot of mothers in this country, starting with the wife of the governor of Maryland.
Really, if I had an opportunity to shoot Britney Spears, I think I would.
Oh, that's horrible.
Well,
that's really bad.
Because of the example for kids and how hard it is to be a parent.
Well, that's really sad that she said that. Ew. I'm not here to, you know, babysit her kids.
There's just that invisible line that seemed to exist then.
My name is Britton Stone, and I was the photography director of Us Weekly for about a decade. When I had a really healthy budget, it'd be $140,000 a week on imagery. Extrapolate that over the year, you know, $7–8 million. But, you know, spending millions of dollars on pictures, that just, you know, quintupled the amount of money that was out there, which meant there were a lot more photographers coming in and doing it.
I never wanted to be considered a paparazzi. I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, but it sucks you right in, and it's hard to get out of it once you start making the kind of monies that these guys were making.
Photos of Britney can sell for up to $1 million each.
Guys, be nice, guys, be nice. Everybody's gonna get their shots, guys. In the beginning, when paparazzis were following Britney, you could tell she enjoyed it. What's going on with that, Britney? Talk to me, baby girl. She would give up the shots, waving. She was very friendly, sweetheart of a girl. It was like she needed us and we needed her. We both needed each other. And it was a great kind of relationship. All right, let's go. Thank you, Britney. We love you. Yeah, sure.
Well, there was always a little bit of a hunger for the unposed photographs.
Sometimes their personal life becomes bigger than their work.
As we had more of that kind of material in the magazine, you know, the sales just went up.
Britney Spears and Kevin Federline.
Britney then makes an announcement that attracts even more paparazzi.
And now, the baby, that's very exciting. Now, you have to be really excited about that.
Yes, ma'am.
The last one, yeah. Once she started having her kid with Kevin Federline, it exploded. Keep him alive, guys. Keep him back up, guys. Everyone wanted a piece of Britney. The tabloids were paying a lot of money.
Back away now.
We want to know what she's buying. Hey, we make you commercial for you.
And almost immediately, there's the perception from the tabloids that Britney is an unfit mother.
Pop star Britney Spears is defending her actions this morning after photos surfaced of her driving with her infant son in her lap on Monday.
The headline of the New York Post yesterday, Britney tripping outside a New York hotel Thursday while holding her 8-month-old son in one hand and a glass of water in the other.
Oh, really? A glass of water. She tripped with a glass of water in a hand, not a glass of wine or anything that showed she was under the influence or somehow negligent. What's her excuse going to be for this? Oh, back in the 2000s, we just didn't have intelligence back then.
You were photographed, I guess, by the paparazzi again, pursuing you. And there was Sean on your lap in the car.
Yeah.
Take me through what happened there.
I went to Starbucks and I see a bunch of photographers and I'm scared and I want to get out of the situation and my baby's crying. They're coming up on the, the sides of the car, which is a scary situation for me, and they're banging on the windows and that's not something I want my baby to, so I get my baby out of the car and I go home. So, and I just feel like they're taking cheap shots.
You've got all these legitimate people weighing in, saying, you know what? That's dangerous. And she put her child at risk. You saw the questions that were being asked. Is Britney a bad mom?
That's America for you.
Britney has 2 kids almost back to back. She has her second baby just about a year after having her first baby. There's a lot of speculation over whether Britney and Kevin have marital problems. And then a few weeks after giving birth to her second child, she files for divorce. Britney files for sole custody of their 2 kids. The very next day, Kevin files for sole custody himself. And in her book, Britney's mother, Lynn, writes that she thinks Britney was suffering from postpartum depression.
The main thing that people became fascinated with was her sort of unraveling. Fascinating to not just, your typical celebrity fan base, but just to anyone.
Let him through. Britney in Paris hooked up with party girl Lindsay Lohan.
There we go. She's basically starting to lose interest in the very carefully managed image of Britney Spears as a pop star.
Oh, it was very carefully managed, was it? And by the way, I don't see the kids out partying with her. Obviously, they're with a babysitter. Women, and yes, dare I say it, even mothers are allowed to go out occasionally and party.
And at the same time, tabloid culture, they're reaching the height of their powers.
Britney Spears must be paying the babysitter overtime.
The goal is not to sort of, with these kinds of imagery, be negative about people. It was to enjoy their lives in a somewhat aspirational / relatable way.
I'm gonna call bullshit on that one. We all know you go for the salaciousness. What do you take us for, idiots?
Guys. Let her out. Come on, go. Back up. Back up. Back up. Back up. Back up. Back up. Come let her out. Let her out. Let her out. Let her walk. Let her walk. Bring everything. Are you okay, Britney?
The car's this way, Britney.
Car's this way. Over here, Britney. Your car is here. Are you okay, Britney? You need to move. You need to move. Careful.
I feel you. They shouldn't harass you like that, Britney Spears.
Let her out. Hi, Britney. How you doing today? Britney. You look gorgeous. Come on, man. Hey, Early, stop. Stop it. Relax. Hey, Early. What the fuck, man? Stop it. Stop it. Stop. Hey, stop it. Stop it.
Oh my God, no wonder she was afraid of them. These same idiots that write these salacious headlines about her are actually fighting. Well, it's a good thing she didn't have her kids there, right?
now. Back to the top. Let her in. Guys, let's go. Move out. Come on,
We will turn now to a story that is burning up the internet. It's just burning this morning. Yes. Britney Spears. She's bald.
She came in and she said she wanted her head shaved. The hairdresser refused, so she literally grabbed the hair clipper and started doing it herself. And she said, I don't want anyone touching me. I'm tired of everybody touching me.
It's so easy. It's so much fun to take a celebrity who's a young, beautiful, talented girl and rip her to shreds.
It was so cold, Britney Spears had chapped head.
Friends say this is the craziest thing Britney's ever done that didn't involve marriage. It's unbelievable.
And so she's saying essentially with no hair, I quit. Whatever you guys are looking for in terms of me coming back and being that person again, I'm not, that person is gone. And you have destroyed her. The idea that people could look at that and only see a crazy person, well, that just tells me that, you know, what a vulturous society she was working with to begin with.
It's Britney, bitch.
I don't really think, and I don't really believe, because, you know, working on her for so many years, she never gave a clue or information to us that I don't appreciate you guys. Leave me the F alone.
What about when she said, leave me alone?
There were times where she's like, can you leave me alone for the day? But it wasn't like, leave me alone forever. You know what I mean?